Hey guys, I'm going to share a story that still haunts me to this day. This happened last summer when I was backpacking through Cornwall, England. I'm originally from London, but I wanted to explore the countryside and get away from the city noise. So here's what happened. I arrived in a small village called Porthallow. It's a tiny coastal village, population maybe 200 people. Beautiful place, really peaceful. I booked a small cottage for a week, just to relax and enjoy the sea view. On my second day there, I went for a walk along the cliff path. The weather was typical British summer, cloudy with occasional drizzle. As I was walking back to the village around 7 p.m., I noticed something odd. There was an old red phone box standing alone near the edge of the village. You know those classic British telephone boxes? But this one looked different. It was really old, the paint was fading, and there were scratches all over the glass. What made it weird was that it was covered in dead flowers, like dozens of wilted bouquets piled around its base. I thought it was strange, but maybe it was some kind of memorial or something. I took a photo and continued walking. That evening, I went to the local pub called the Anchor for dinner. I met the landlady, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson. She was friendly, chatty, the typical British pub owner. "You're the one staying at Rose Cottage, aren't you?" she asked while serving my fish and chips. "Yes, that's me. Lovely village you have here." "Aye, it is. But you be careful walking around at night, love, especially near that old phone box by the cliff road." My ears perked up. "The red phone box? Why? What's wrong with it?" Mrs. Patterson's face became serious. She leaned closer and whispered, "That phone box. It's been there since 1965. Nobody uses it anymore. The phone company tried to remove it 3 times, but every time they try, something bad happens. Workers get sick, accidents occur, so they just left it there." "But why the flowers?" I asked. "Those are from the families, dear. The families of people who made the mistake of using that phone." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Patterson looked around to make sure no one else was listening. She leaned closer and whispered, "They say if you pick up that phone and dial any number, someone answers. But it's not a living person. It's someone who's already dead. And once you hear their voice, you're marked." I laughed nervously. "Come on, that's just a local legend, right?" "You can think that if you want, love, but we've had 5 deaths in this village connected to that phone box. The last one was just 2 years ago. A tourist, young man about your age. He thought it was just a story, too. They found him 3 days later at the bottom of the cliff. His phone was in his hand, and the call log showed a number that didn't exist." My goosebumps were all over my arms, but part of me didn't believe it. I mean, it sounded like typical small-town ghost stories to scare tourists, right? "Thanks for the warning, Mrs. Patterson. I'll stay away from it," I said, though honestly, I was curious. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that phone box. The rational part of my brain said it was nonsense, but there was this nagging curiosity that wouldn't leave me alone. Around 2 a.m., I made a decision. I know, it was stupid, but I had to see for myself. I put on my jacket and walked out into the cold night. The village was completely silent. No cars, no people, just the sound of waves crashing against the cliffs in the distance. I walked down the dark road until I saw it. The red phone box, illuminated by a single flickering street lamp. The dead flowers around it looked even more sinister in the dark. I stood in front of it for about 5 minutes, just staring. My hand was shaking as I reached for the door handle. The door creaked open. Inside, it smelled musty and damp. There was graffiti on the walls, mostly faded, But one message was clear, written in what looked like black marker. "Don't call. They're waiting." My heart was pounding. This was my chance to turn back, but I didn't. I picked up the receiver. To my surprise, there was a dial tone. A clear, steady dial tone. How was that possible? This phone should have been disconnected decades ago. My fingers moved on their own. I dialed my grandmother's old phone number. She had passed away 3 years ago. I don't know why I chose that number. It just felt right. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then someone picked up. "Hello?" It was a woman's voice, old, tired, and it sounded exactly like my grandmother. My blood turned to ice. I couldn't speak. My throat was completely dry. "Hello? Who's there?" the voice asked again. "Grandma?" I whispered. There was a long pause. Then I heard breathing, heavy, labored breathing. "You shouldn't have called, dear," the voice said. But now it didn't sound like my grandmother anymore. It sounded wrong, distorted, like multiple voices speaking at once. "Who are you?" I managed to say. "We're the ones who've been waiting. Thank you for opening the door." Suddenly, the light in the phone box started flickering. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. And then I saw something in the reflection of the glass. A figure, standing right behind me, tall, dark, with hollow eyes. I dropped the phone and ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. I didn't look back. I just ran straight to my cottage, slammed the door, and locked every lock. I spent the rest of the night hiding under my blanket, shaking, praying for morning to come. But the worst part? When I finally checked my phone the next morning, I had a missed call from my grandmother's old number, the number that hasn't existed for 3 years. And there was a voicemail.
Guys, let me continue the story. So that morning, after the phone box incident, I was sitting on my bed, staring at my phone. That missed call from my grandmother's old number was still showing on my screen. My hand was shaking as I hovered over the voicemail notification. Part of me wanted to just delete it without listening, but you know that feeling when you just have to know? Yeah, curiosity is a dangerous thing. I took a deep breath and pressed play. At first, there was just static, heavy, crackling static like an old radio. Then I heard it. Breathing. Someone was breathing into the phone. Slow, raspy breaths. And then, whispers. Multiple voices whispering all at once. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it made my skin crawl. Then one voice became clear. It was my grandmother's voice again. "You opened the door, sweetheart. Now we can find you. Wherever you go, whatever you do, we'll be watching, waiting, until it's time." "Time for what?" I shouted at my phone, even though the message had ended. The voicemail was only 30 seconds long, but it felt like an eternity. I immediately deleted it and threw my phone across the bed. I needed to get out of this village. Forget the rest of my week-long booking, I was leaving today. I started packing my bags frantically. But then, I heard a knock on the door. My heart almost stopped. Who would knock on my door at 8 in the morning? "Hello?" I called out. "It's Mrs. Patterson, dear, from the pub. Can I come in?" I opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Patterson was standing there with a concerned look on her face. She was holding a tray with tea and biscuits. "I saw your light on all night. You went to the phone box, didn't you?" I couldn't lie. I just nodded. She sighed deeply and walked into my cottage. "Sit down, love. I need to tell you everything." We sat at the small dining table. Mrs. Patterson poured the tea with shaking hands. "That phone box? she began. "It wasn't always cursed. Back in 1965, it was just a normal phone box. But then, something happened. A young woman named Elizabeth Marsh used that phone to call her husband. He was a fisherman, out at sea. There was a terrible storm that night." She paused, taking a sip of her tea. Elizabeth called him to beg him to come home, that the storm was too dangerous. But the connection was bad. The line was full of static. She kept calling, over and over, desperately trying to reach him. Then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., she got through. But the voice that answered, it wasn't her husband. "What was it?" I asked, already dreading the answer. It was the sea itself, or something in the sea. Some ancient thing that lives in the deep waters off Cornwall. The fishermen used to tell stories about it, called it the caller from below. They say it can mimic voices of the dead, luring people to their doom. Elizabeth's husband never came home. His boat was found empty, drifting. And Elizabeth, she was found 3 days later in that phone box, dead. The phone receiver was melted to her hand like it had been burned. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing, and her face was frozen in a scream. I felt sick to my stomach. But why is the phone still working? Why hasn't anyone destroyed it? They tried. Oh, they tried many times. But every time someone tries to damage or remove that phone box, people die. Workers, officials, even a priest who came to bless it. 7 people have died trying to get rid of it. So the village made a pact. We leave it alone. We warn tourists, and we hope it stays quiet. But I used it, I whispered. What's going to happen to me? Mrs. Patterson reached across the table and held my hand. Her hand was cold and thin. The 5 people who died after using that phone box, they all had something in common. They all received a call back, and they all died exactly 3 days later. Different ways. One drowned in his bathtub. One fell down the stairs. One simply stopped breathing. But they all died at 3:33 a.m. My mind was racing. 3 days. That means I have until Thursday night, 3:33 a.m. Mrs. Patterson finished. Today is Tuesday. I stood up so fast that my chair fell backward. There has to be a way to stop this. There has to be something I can do. Mrs. Patterson looked at me with sad eyes. There is one person who might be able to help. Old Thomas. He's a hermit who lives in a cottage up on the North Cliff. He's the only person who ever used that phone and survived. But he's not quite right anymore. The experience changed him. I don't care. I need to see him, now. Mrs. Patterson gave me directions to Thomas's cottage. It was about an hour's walk along a difficult cliff path. She warned me that he might not talk to me, that he rarely speaks to anyone anymore. I didn't waste any time. I grabbed my jacket and started walking. The path to Thomas's cottage was treacherous. Sharp rocks, muddy trails, and a steep drop to the sea below. The wind was strong, and the gray sky looked like it was about to pour rain. Finally, I saw it. A small, crumbling stone cottage perched dangerously close to the cliff edge. Smoke was coming from the chimney. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again, louder. "Go away," a harsh voice shouted from inside. "Please, I need your help. I used the phone box. I only have 3 days." Silence. Then I heard shuffling footsteps. The door opened a crack, and I saw a man's face. He must have been in his 70s, but he looked ancient. His hair was completely white. His skin was pale and wrinkled, and his eyes looked haunted. "You're a fool," he said simply. "But come in, quickly." I entered the cottage. It was dark, cluttered with books, candles, and strange symbols drawn on the walls. Thomas locked the door behind me with 3 different locks. "Sit," he commanded, pointing to an old wooden chair. I sat down, and Thomas stared at me for a long moment. "Who did you call?" he asked. "My grandmother. She passed away 3 years ago." Thomas nodded slowly. "And they called you back?" "Yes. Left a voicemail. Said they're waiting. That they'll find me." Thomas walked to a shelf and pulled out an old leather journal. He opened it and showed me pages filled with handwritten notes and drawings. Drawings of the phone box, of dark figures, of symbols I didn't recognize. "I've spent 40 years studying this curse, trying to understand it, trying to break it. I used that phone in 1984, called my brother who died in the war, and like you, they called me back." "But you survived. How?" Thomas looked at me with those haunted eyes. "I didn't survive unscathed. I lost something. Something I can never get back. But I can help you. There is one way to break the curse before the 3 days are up." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You have to go back to the phone box at exactly midnight tonight, and you have to answer when they call." "What? Are you insane?" "Listen to me." Thomas grabbed my shoulders. "When they call, you have to confront them. You have to refuse their claim. You have to be strong enough to tell them no. If you can do that, if you can resist their voices, their tricks, their manipulation, you might break free. And if I can't?" Thomas let go of me and turned away. "Then you'll join them, forever trapped between worlds, part of the caller's collection of lost souls." I felt like I was going to be sick. "Is there no other way?" "None. Trust me. I've looked for 40 years. I stood up, my legs feeling weak. Okay, I'll do it. I have to." Thomas wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to me. "These are protective words. Memorize them. Say them when you feel yourself weakening. They won't save you, but they might give you strength." I took the paper.
Guys, this is the final chapter, the hardest night of my entire life. After leaving Thomas's cottage, I spent the rest of the day preparing. I memorized the protective words he gave me. I read them over and over until they were burned into my brain. I didn't eat. I couldn't. My stomach was in knots. Mrs. Patterson checked on me around dinner time. She brought me soup, but I couldn't touch it. "You're really going through with this?" she asked. "I have no choice. It's either face them tonight or wait to die on Thursday." She nodded sadly. "I'll be praying for you, dear. Whatever happens, know that you're braver than most." At 11:30 p.m., I put on my warmest jacket and headed out. The village was dead silent, as usual, but tonight it felt different, more oppressive, like the darkness itself was watching me. I reached the phone box at 11:50 p.m., 10 minutes to midnight. The dead flowers around it seemed to have multiplied. There must have been over 100 bouquets now, all wilted and rotting. I opened the door and stepped inside. The smell hit me immediately. It wasn't just musty anymore. It smelled like decay, like death.
I stared at the black phone on the wall, waiting. 11:55 p.m. 11:58 p.m. 11:59 p.m. My watch showed midnight. Nothing happened for a few seconds. Then, ring! Ring! The phone started ringing. The sound was loud, deafening in the small space. My hand shook as I reached for the receiver. "Remember," I whispered to myself, "don't give them your name. Stay strong." I picked up the phone. "Hello?" At first, silence. Then I heard it. The ocean, waves crashing, wind howling, and underneath it all, voices. So many voices, all whispering, crying, screaming at once. "You came back," said a voice. It sounded like my grandmother again. "We knew you would. Curious little thing, aren't you?" "I'm here to break the curse," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I refuse your claim. I don't belong to you." Laughter. Cold, cruel laughter that made my blood freeze. "Oh, but you do. You called us. You opened the door. You invited us in. That's how it works, sweetheart. You're ours now." "No, I'm not." I gripped the phone tighter. "I am my own person. You have no power over me." Her voice changed. Now it sounded like my mother. "Please, help me. I'm trapped here. It's so cold, so dark. I need you to join me. Please." My heart clenched. It sounded so real, so desperate. But I remembered Thomas's warning. "You're not my mother. You're just using her voice. I see through you." "Clever girl," the voice hissed. And now it didn't sound human at all. It was layered, multiple tones speaking as one. "But everyone breaks eventually. Everyone has a weakness. What's yours?" Suddenly, the glass walls of the phone box started showing images, reflections that weren't there. I saw my family, my friends, all of them in danger, drowning, falling, dying. "We can make this real," the voice said. "We can reach them, all of them, unless you take their place, sacrifice yourself. One life for many. Isn't that noble?" I felt tears streaming down my face. This was the trick, the manipulation. They were trying to make me give up willingly. "No," I said through gritted teeth. "These aren't real. You're showing me lies. I refuse. I refuse." I started reciting the protective words Thomas gave me. The strange Latin phrases felt powerful on my tongue, even though I didn't know what they meant. The phone box started shaking. The temperature dropped so low that ice began to form on the glass. The images became more violent, more disturbing. "Stop!" the voices screamed. "Stop those words!" But I didn't stop. I kept reciting them, louder and louder. My breath was visible in the freezing air. My fingers were numb, but I didn't let go of the phone. "You cannot break free. The pact was made. The door was opened." "Then I close it," I shouted. "I close the door. I take back my invitation. You are not welcome. You have no power here." There was a sound like thunder. The phone box filled with blinding white light. I felt something pulling at me, trying to drag me down, but I held firm. I kept repeating the protective words, kept refusing them, kept denying their claim. Then, silence. Complete and absolute silence. The light faded. The temperature slowly returned to normal. I was still holding the phone receiver, but now there was no dial tone. Just nothing. I slowly hung up the phone and stumbled out of the phone box. I fell to my knees on the cold ground, gasping for air.
I looked at my watch. 12:17 a.m. I had been in there for 17 minutes, but it felt like hours. I was alive. I was free. The next morning, I went to see Thomas. I knocked on his door, and he opened it immediately, as if he'd been waiting for me. "You did it," he said simply. It wasn't a question. He could see it in my eyes. "I did. It's over." Thomas smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile. "Good. Now leave this village, leave Cornwall, go back to your life and never speak of this again." "What about you? Why did you stay?" His smile faded. "Someone has to watch, to warn, to remember. That's my burden now. But you still have a chance at a normal life. Take it." I thanked him and left. I packed my bags and was out of that village within an hour. But guys, here's the thing that still haunts me. A week after I returned to London, I was scrolling through my photos. I looked at the picture I had taken of the phone box on my first day in Porth Halo. And in the picture, barely visible in the reflection of the glass, there was a figure, standing inside the phone box. Tall, dark, with hollow eyes. It had been there from the beginning, waiting, watching. And sometimes, late at night when my phone rings from an unknown number, I don't answer, because I know what's on the other end. And I know that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. The end. Guys, this is based on a fictional story, but Cornwall does have many real haunted phone boxes and mysterious locations. If you ever visit the UK, be respectful of local legends and warnings. Sometimes they exist for a reason. Stay safe, don't call mysterious numbers, and remember, curiosity might satisfy your mind, but it can also cost you everything. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more horror stories, and let me know in the comments, would you have answered that phone?